Yeah. Breaking news. Uh, Bill Cosby, formerly incarcerated, is now to be released because the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania overturned his conviction. This is another victory for the so-called Black America because we will now be allowed to see on TV the Cosby Show, and hopefully this dude Bill Cosby will use his wealth for good of the so-called black people after going through 2 years of misery, similar to Joseph, Joseph in the Bible, and also Joseph in the Quran, the Holy Quran. Joseph was the youngest child of the children of Israel. He was the youngest, and he was the brother of what's his name? Was it Benjamin? Whatever, Judah, Benjamin, and Joseph. Or was it Judah and Joseph? I know the daughter of the wife that Judah really wanted. Joseph. What's his name? Jacob. Jacob wanted to marry a particular woman, but the father made him marry his other daughter first. So the 12 children, the 12 tribes of Israel come from two different women. But Joseph was the one that could read the dreams, and he was the one that Jacob favored out of all of the other sons. So the other brothers got together to throw Joseph into slavery or to kill him. They wanted to kill him. I think Reuben and Judah say instead of killing him, let's just sell him to Ishmaelites or sell him into slavery. So they decided, what they was going to do. And then some Ishmaelites came through and captured him, and then ended up selling them into slavery. So Judah and the other brothers, Reuben, Gad, Issachar, all of them didn't know what happened. So they told Jacob that Joseph was killed by a lion or something. So when Joseph was in Egypt, when the Ishmaelites sold him to slavery in Egypt, he was the servant of a powerful Egyptian. And a powerful Egyptian had a wife who tried to seduce Joseph, and Joseph wouldn't do it. And then she told the police that she was raped by Joseph, and they ended up throwing him in jail. And he was in jail for, I think, 20 years. When he was in jail, he was interpreting people's dreams, and then Pharaoh ended up having a dream. And one of the people who Joseph interpreted dreams was actually a servant of Pharaoh. And nobody could interpret Pharaoh's dream. Pharaoh's dream was he saw 7 fat cows. And then he saw 7 lean cows. And then the lean cows devoured the fat cows. And they were still lean. And nobody could interpret the dream. So the servant of Pharaoh said, there's a man that's in jail who could interpret that dream. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph to get that dream interpreted. And then the Most High God gave Joseph the interpretation of the dream. And Joseph said the 7 fat cows represent 7 years of abundance. And the 7 lean cows represent 7 years of famine. And in order to survive the 7 years of famine, you must save during the 7 years of abundance. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge. He made him governor of Egypt and put Joseph over storing all of the food during the 7 years of abundance. And this made Egypt the wealthiest country in the world. All of the people around came through to get food because they stored mountains of corn and whatnot. But that imprisonment ended up allowing Joseph to be in a position of extreme power. And he was able to save the whole world, also his own family. But hopefully this Bill Cosby situation, this 2 years of being in jail, will help this dude use his power and wealth and position to help his people. And also, they need to put his TV shows and his movies back on TV because he has been canceled, which is ridiculous. But his case has been overturned by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and this is possibly due to what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court allowed to happen during the presidential election. They actually changed election laws, even though that's up to the legislative situation. But that probably has nothing to do with it, but maybe it does. But let me play this video. Play this video about Bill Cosby being released. Oh, where's the button? Hold on, it's over here.
We're coming on the air with breaking news about Bill Cosby. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has overturned the 83-year-old actor's sex assault conviction, and he could be
Hold on, let me go back.
released from prison within. With breaking news about Bill Cosby. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has overturned the 83-year-old actor's sex assault conviction, and he could be released from prison within hours. Cosby served more than 2 years of a 3 to 10-year sentence, convicted of drugging and molesting Temple University employee Andrea Constant. Ron Allen has been covering this case from the very beginning. Ron, why was the conviction vacated?
Throughout this entire process, Cosby had complained that the other accusers, other than Andrea Constant, were allowed to testify at his trial. You'll remember the first trial ended in a deadlocked hung jury. One woman was allowed to testify. In the second trial, there were 5 other so-called prior bad acts that were explored by the prosecutors. 5 other women who had accused him of similar sexual assault. The prosecutors justified this by saying that they were trying to show that there was a pattern, that he had treated women the same way, that he essentially had befriended or become a mentor for some young performers and then started seeing them, and then at some point this became a romantic relationship, and that he allegedly drugged them and sexually assaulted them in some way. The Supreme Court is now saying that that's unfair, essentially, to have these other witnesses testify. This is central to many cases that have been part of the Me Too movement. The Harvey Weinstein case, there were 4 other women who were allowed to testify in his case as well. So while this pertains to only the case of Bill Cosby in Pennsylvania, it could have far-reaching implications, because the basic principle here that Cosby argued, and apparently successfully before the Supreme Court, is that he should have been tried only based on what happened in the Andrea Constance matter that was before the court, that the jury could not and should not have heard other testimony from other women about other things that he had done. There was also a deposition that had been sealed as a result of a civil suit that Constance had brought against Cosby. The judge in the criminal case against Cosby allowed that deposition to be unsealed, even though there was an agreement, Cosby maintained, with the prior prosecutor that it would remain confidential and secret. So basically, Cosby's argument throughout this whole thing has been he wasn't treated fairly, that he was that other witnesses were allowed to testify that didn't pertain to this particular case. And it appears, I'm still reading through the decision, through the opinions, but it appears the Supreme Court agreed with that basic principle.
All right, Ron Allen, thank you. I want to turn now to NBC legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, does this open the door for a retrial, or what potentially happens now?
It does. I'm still poring over this opinion, Lester. It's multiple pages, and getting through it, and I'm seeing that the court didn't even address the 404B issue, which is the witnesses, the prior bad acts witnesses. But it appears that the Commonwealth, and that's the state of Pennsylvania, would be able to try Cosby again if they so elected. So this is a massive win. I can tell you, of handling many appeals in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that they are not easy to win, that this is a very rare event to have your entire conviction vacated like this or overturned. And so it'll be interesting to see what strategically the Commonwealth does going forward.
There was also some questions at the beginning of this case about prior agreements with the prior DA. Did that come into play here?
It did. It is something that is discussed. I haven't read the court-specific ruling on it, but it appears that that is one of the bases on appeal. And essentially the argument was that it appears that Bruce Castor, the prior DA, made some kind of unofficial deal where allegedly that Cosby would agree to take a deposition and possibly get a civil settlement for one of the victims. And in exchange, at least Cosby argued, there would be no prosecution. Whether or not or how much of that is true, I'm not entirely sure, but that was a main basis for appeal, essentially that Cosby was already essentially immune because of an agreement, allegedly, with the prior prosecutor.
Is there anything here that questions any of the facts of the case as we've known them?
Nothing I've seen so far, Lester, but I caution that this is hot off the presses, and I'm still scrolling through this opinion as I can right now.
All right, I want to let you get back to that. Danny, thanks. And
Yeah. This is another victory for the black man. Now, I seen something similar, I think yesterday, with Jason Kidd and Chauncey Billups, who was accused of Chauncey Billups was accused of something similar to a so-called white woman who he never been charged with an accusation. And Jason Kidd was accused, or he wasn't accused, he pled guilty to domestic assault, whatever, violence. So they wanted the white woman to be the coach of the Dallas Mavericks or the Portland Trailblazers. And because they chose Chauncey Billups and Jason Kidd over the so-called white woman, some Becky lady, they're trying to say that's a bad look. But it seems as though the so-called white woman has always been used as a tool, accusing the black man of doing these attacks against them to justify annihilating black people as a whole. You look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, a so-called white woman, they accused the black man of doing something to a so-called white woman as a pretext to destroying the entire black community. And these so-called white women accused Bill Cosby of something that they say happened 50 years ago, and yet they just all of a sudden, just now remembered what happened, and they actually changed the law, the statute of limitation law, just to take down Bill Cosby, a wealthy, powerful black man who I think was trying to build power with other rich, wealthy black people to acquire a media empire. And the Caucasians used the so-called words of a white woman from 50 years ago to railroad him into prison, changed laws, violated the law just for Bill Cosby. And the Supreme Court just threw it all out. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court just vacated his entire conviction. He must be paid reparations for wrongful imprisonment, and his TV shows must be placed on TV. Them TV shows, the movies, what he did with Sidney Poitier, his movies and his TV shows needs to be put on TV immediately today. And that's the news. That's about it right now. Good news.